Welcome to Nerds Explain It All. I'm Zach.
I'm Lance.
And I'm Nancy.
That's right, Nancy is back. Welcome to the new show, Nancy.
Woohoo, thank you.
This is her first appearance on our Nerds Explain It All 2.0. So,
yeah.
Yes, Nancy's still part of the family, so glad to have you back on the microphone, Nancy. So,
thanks, guys.
The Hobbit, There and Back Again. Is that the title, Nancy?
Alas, it would have been if there'd been only a second film, but no.
Now, why couldn't they have?
No.
Yeah, and yes, the title is
It could have.
The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies. It's the third in the Hobbit trilogy. That's right, the Hobbit trilogy.
I'm shaking my head.
Why did they change the title?
Well, obviously.
I don't know. I don't think they had to change it per se. I mean, it was really clever that they took an unexpected journey and
that was good
and back
I
again because
it.
those are like the two subtitles of Bilbo's book.
Correct.
Right? I thought that was a real clever way if you're going to make two, and I agree to make two films out of it. If those films were of a decent length, perhaps two 2-hour films would have been in order. Not 3 2.5 to 3 hour films.
Yeah, because one of my main complaints, I guess, is the pacing just seemed kind of off, and where they cut things and where they decided to end and start things was really weird.
Right, turning what was conceived into two films into three in post production is never a good idea.
Yeah.
So what they should have done in the first movie is they make it all the way to the mountain. Now they'd have to cut out a lot of stuff. I mean, but they get through Lake Town, they get to the mountain. Bilbo figures out, whatever. He rouses Smaug from this cave. So it should have ended where the Desolation of Smaug ended, the first film, right? With him leaving to go rain doom upon Lake Town. That would make sense.
I disagree.
It would, but I disagree.
However, but that's if you're actually going to do a good job with the Battle of the Five Armies, which is not what happened.
Yeah.
So realistically,
we'll get into that.
where I thought it should have ended, if we're doing a first film, if Nancy made it,
right?
We're going to stop where Bilbo, y'all remember that scene? It's in the Desolation of Smaug where he's talking to Balin.
Oh, I think he's like
that my boy.
The last movie, yeah.
That my boy is the dragon. I thought that's it. Boom, scene.
Yeah, that
was
cool.
I actually thought that might have been where they end it.
I did too, and then it kept going, and it kept going and kept going, and then people were gold surfing, and I was sad.
I disagree about Smaug. I think he should have been in one movie.
Yeah,
they basically spread him over. Two movies here, and as we all anticipated, it was very anticlimactic for him to be in the movie for 10 minutes.
If you read the book, no, he doesn't that's not a protracted fight. PJ has adapted it.
So going into The Hobbit 3, let's just call it 1, 2, and 3 for brevity's sake. I actually enjoyed The Hobbit 1 the most out of all three.
Yep. I did too.
I felt it was most in the spirit of the original trilogy.
Yep.
And felt like a true story. But will we all agree the first one's probably the best / our favorite of this Hobbit trilogy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would say so.
I actually think that it was good enough to be on par with, the Two Towers. Well,
I actually, and on an individual level, if we just level out all the films, I think The Hobbit might be my favorite of the films.
Really?
Six. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just, I need to rewatch. I need to rewatch them all at some point.
Right.
It's quite an undertaking, so I don't know.
Yes, it is.
I do it every year. If you would like to join me,
let me know. I will definitely have to watch it with other people because I don't think I'll get through them by myself. You guys, now I do not remember if you and Travis were a part of this, Nancy. But do you remember when we watched them all, at the end of high school, beginning of college?
I'm sure I was there.
Lance was there, I know. And
Travis was.
There was probably and I kid you not, about
a lot of
12 or 15 of our circle of friends there. We watched Fellowship on a Friday night at Ben's house, and then we watched the next two movies at Kovac's house on Saturday. Because it was the extended editions. Return of the King extended edition had just come out.
Ooh, it's a good one.
That's why, of the trilogy, I like that one the best. Especially the extended edition. That one benefits the most from the extended edition, in my opinion. But
yes,
it was really fun just to sit around and just kind of MST3K it a little bit,
It was. Well, because we were there all day, and it was such a long thing to do, so that was the only logical thing we could do toward the end.
Right.
Is just kind of talk a little bit of junk.
Just so many Star Wars references and Rudy references.
Well, that was the best. That was my favorite. When
we all started chanting Rudy.
When Sam was carrying Frodo up the mountain, we all started chanting Rudy.
Rudy. It's like 10 people. That's ridiculous. And it was a very enjoyable experience. And I have not sat down that was 10 years ago, okay? And I've not sat down and watched them all properly since. If those films came out today,
Yeah.
Although it's kind of a catch-22 because the reason we're getting so many novels series turned into films
is because this
was highly successful.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, had these come along, and The Hobbit is proof to this, had the Lord of the Rings trilogy come along 10 years later, we would have gotten 6 films out of those 3 movies.
Oh, God, I'm so glad we didn't.
Really? Well, even the books themselves are cut into basically,
yes, they are
6 books, if you will.
Exactly.
So
I'm so glad he didn't.
Well, I don't think it would have worked narratively because it just would have been like, oh, here's the Frodo movie. Here's the Aragorn movie.
No, totally.
And now
agree.
we're going back to the Frodo movie, and you need those cutting back and forth to create tension, especially in the medium like film.
Yes, I agree. That is definitely something that needed to be changed. I thought it was a good change from the novels. It's different when you're a reader reading it, but when you're an audience watching it, you can't have all those narrative threads.
Right.
That's why, like, Game of Thrones is never just one person's perspective.
Agreed.
Like the books
the books are that way because the chapters are like each character's name.
Right.
So
that's why the TV series is catching up to the novels quick. So
exactly, exactly, right. So
yeah, I mean, we all like Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's not one of my favorite films of all time, because I didn't.
It is for me.
Well, I didn't grow up with it,
Yeah.
I mean, had it, it wasn't a Star Wars or a Star Trek or something like or Superman
sure.
to me. When you're kids, of course, you watch these movies over and over and over. I appreciate them for their filmmaking craft. It's very ambitious to shoot 3 films at once. And then to come out with going into it knowing you're going to shoot 3 and coming out with 3, not going into it thinking you're going to shoot 2 and coming out with 3.
That's true.
So which brings us to The Hobbit, really.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct these.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Now, Nancy, would you have preferred he do it than Jackson?
Yes.
In retrospect.
Yes.
But going into it, you wanted PJ to do it, right?
No,
really?
I did.
You
Well,
didn't.
No, because, I wanted PJ to do it until Guillermo's name started getting thrown around, and then I thought, holy shit, yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Because Guillermo, I think, he is also a really big fan. And I don't know, remember how we were talking earlier, like before we all saw the film,
mm-hmm.
and you had read that people were accusing him of PJ of being George Lucas, and I was like, oh, come now.
Well, I was one of those people just watching his interviews where like you see like the retrospective of like, this is the 6th film and it completes the whole piece. It's a
right.
it's a 6 film
well,
arc.
That's not how. That's. We'll get to it later when we talk about it.
I can't really do a Peter Jackson impression. It's more like King Kong's my favorite movie, so I wanted to make that first. And then I made Lord of the Rings. And did anyone see The Frighteners?
I have to say, about halfway through this film, my first thought, I had this really horrible, like, sinking feeling in my heart. I did. I'm not exaggerating.
Well, okay. Well, let's hold up. Let's hold up right there.
Oh no, it's Lucas sickness. They were right. Like, it made me very sad.
It's like dragon sickness, but for film.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's exactly what I have written down.
Well, wait. Let's get into it though.
So let's start at the beginning.
Exactly.
What were the expectations? So after Desolation of Smaug, okay, so who liked Desolation of Smaug?
I thought it was just all right, but I'll get into why in just a second. I just thought it was all right.
Well, like I said, I liked the first Hobbit the best.
Yes.
So it was very disappointing, frankly, for me after the first one, because I thought Desolation of Smaug was pretty weak.
Well, and you know what? I thought to myself, this is what people said about The Two Towers, which, I mean, it's tough being the bridging act, especially when it's not supposed to be the bridging act.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be part of the last act. So
it's the structure that the franchise, or the trilogy, should I say, falls apart with.
And that's my biggest grievance with all of this.
Yeah, The Hobbit sets up a trilogy.
Two Towers is a good film by itself.
I agree.
I thought. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking to myself, well, maybe it's just a little weak. If he really pulls off Hobbit 3, then it'll make this one look better. You know how we've talked about that before. This one's good until the next sequel comes out, and then depending on how good or bad that one is, it throws all the other previous films in a different light. So I was, what's the term? I would not say hopefully optimistic, but I was excited to see Hobbit 3. I was hoping that, kind of the negative stuff that and I think a lot of it was warranted. A lot of the negative opinions and criticism against these first 2 films, I thought, well, hopefully, if he pulls it off, it won't be that bad. Sure, it'll have its haters, but I'll like it because I like Tolkien. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's how I thought going into this.
I pretty much had no expectation. Like, I was not caught up in the hype, so to speak. And to that point, where was the hype for this film?
There was not a lot.
There was not any.
I mean, after when the first Hobbit came out, it was like, oh, it's Peter Jackson's coming back and it would take a journey back to Middle Earth and all that. And then the sequel, was I felt more hype last year as well. And this one just kind of snuck in there, and here it is, and it's going to be gone before you know it, I think.
It did, and like, the only thing that I really heard about it was that, that hashtag one last time. And they're just like, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh, that's the next movie. Oh, yeah, that's happening.
And the song that Pippin, or Mary,
Billy Boyd.
Which one? Mary or Pippin? Which one?
Pippin.
All right, thank you.
Billy Boyd.
They're interchangeable to me,
Which was incredible. And I listened to the shit out of that song when they released it. I listened to it over and over and over and over and over again, and I got really excited.
It was far more effective in the music video they cut together for it than it was in the end credits of the film.
Oh, I cried like a baby watching that video. I love music.
But a very well done song.
Agreed. So
So I was actually starting to get a little bit. I won't say excited, but I was
interested.
like, I was okay, all right. I'm interested. Before it was like an obligation to go see it. I'm like, well, we got to finish this thing out, But after I saw, and then I watched a couple trailers, and I was like, okay, this might be good. Battle of the Five Armies. It sounds exciting,
right? Right.
So my expectations were, I expected it to be a decent film. And it was a decent film. Would you guys not agree with that at least?
Just as a blanket statement?
Yeah, a decent film.
Yeah. But
I guess.
But at the same time, it didn't really do anything for me. That's the thing.
Right. Okay. Right. So
it
found
existed.
myself.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, at around the same time that I had the "oh no, it's the Lucas sickness" thought to myself.
Yeah.
About, I would say we were probably like 30 minutes from the end. I found myself idly thinking, "I wonder how much longer I have." And I never, ever thought about that during a Lord of the Rings film. Not ever.
That's saying a lot.
Right. So I thought to myself, I was trying to examine my feelings right there while I was watching it. And I was like, is this weird? Like, am I upset that I don't like it more? And I realized that I just didn't have enough opinions or feels about it to really sit down on one side of the fence or the other.
It's because we just saw Korra, and that thing just exhausted all of your emotions.
I actually think that that's true, because it was very hard for me to, I don't know. I just feel like it says a lot that I wanted to like this the most, and I like it the least. Because even the first film I loved, but I didn't love it the way that I love Lord of the Rings. And I don't think I'll really ever love anything the way I love that. I grew up with it. My dad read me the books. We went to go see the movie before it got really popular. My dad was like, "Oh my God, they made a movie!" And then we went to go see it, and I just was blown away. I met my dearest and closest friend through Lord of the Rings, like our shared love of Lord of the Rings. Like, there's nothing in my life that will come close to that, which is fine. And I saw the Hobbit 1, and I thought, this is awesome. Right. Yay. This is a good film. I really
liked it too. And it
but
seemed
I don't have an emotional attachment.
Well, to me, it seemed like the Tolkien purists were already not liking the trilogy after the first Hobbit.
Oh, yeah. No, I loved the first Hobbit.
And I thought, what's wrong with you guys? You got a great film here. It's better than Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
I don't know.
Most things are.
Count your blessings, Tolkien fans.
I was excited to see it, but I wasn't like, I'm going to go see it at midnight. I don't know. It's really hard for me to. I don't really even understand my feelings.
Well, let's get into the film itself then.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
Well, I'll just say this: as someone who has seen The Hobbit, right, the Hobbit trilogy, I've seen them once in the theaters. That's it.
Right?
I haven't bought them, haven't rewatched them, haven't done anything like that.
Sure.
So it has been a year since I saw 2.
Yep.
And 3 starts, and I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try to remember what's going on, because there's no context for anything. Like,
there is zero context.
The brilliant thing about the way the last trilogy was, Lord of the Rings, was, and even Hobbit 2, was they all started with a kind of a flashback to kind of frame things for you.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that was brilliant. It had Frodo's basically nightmare,
right.
And Two Towers, and then it had the Smeagol and Deagle flashback, which was great in Return of the King. And then even in Desolation of Smaug, you have the flashback where Thorin Oakenshield meets Gandalf.
Yes.
And Peter Jackson makes a cameo. But these flashbacks frame everything for you. Get you kind of reacclimated to the world because it's been a year, and that kind of thing. This one just kind of starts because once again, this was constructed as 2 movies, not 3. So it's basically like you press pause. You went and you did something, you came back, and you pressed play.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's how I felt. It was very, I couldn't, it didn't, immediately connect with me. It took me a while to get into the movie the way they started it.
See, here's where like my biggest problem came in, because like the movie starts and it's Smaug wreaking havoc, and then it's like, and I'm thinking to myself on my recollection of reading these books like a long time ago, but I was just like, he's about to die really soon. That means we have a long time of just the five armies and wrapping this up. So that kind of put me in the mood of, well, this is probably not going to be as good as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
What about you, Nancy?
I mean, driving there, I had to give my husband a little primer on what was going on, because I had heard that they start right off. I'd read somewhere, and I was thinking like, oh, he's not going to know because he doesn't really like Lord of the Rings, but he wanted to see it, to round it out, like you said.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, let me kind of remember what was going on so that I can tell you, so you're not like, oh, what's happening? Because you know what, Lance, you're right, because when I don't remember any of their names really, the ones but Bard's son. When they're escaping on the boat with Toriel, and then like he looks over at the boat where he'd hidden the black arrow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Travis didn't remember. Yes,
I know,
but he did that in another movie.
He did. I remembered it.
Wow.
There's no context for that.
There isn't.
How would anybody know
right.
what he's doing? Yeah, that seemed really. That was the very first serious misstep for me, where I was like, like we couldn't have a quick flashback, like of watching him place it there, and it took me a beat to be like, oh, that's where he hit it, and I can't believe I remembered that.
Oh yeah, no, Smaug was already dead when I realized it, but it was still like just one of those things that goes through your head.
Absolutely right. That is Exhibit A of, hey, this was part of another movie. We just moved to another.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Because
watching it, you would have remembered,
because it would have happened
there.
like 10 minutes ago instead of a year ago.
which is why, like, because I said to Zach after we watched it, like, they should have done the whole thing with Smaug in the second movie, since his name is in the title. Just do his entire story in that movie.
Totally agree. Yep, I agree.
Well, I thought, and I just, not to jump ahead to the end, but I assumed there was going to be more endings, much like Return of the King. So I thought,
mistaken.
You moved, yeah, big time, right?
You were big time mistaken.
I was like, oh, it's over.
I know, right? Like, Jesus.
So I thought if you move Smaug all to number 2, number 3 is the Battle of Five Armies, and then whatever extra stuff they wanted to do. Now, to that point, extra stuff, right? I did not realize Saruman and Agent Smith, forgive me.
Elrond is so badass in this.
Yes, I did not realize they were going to be in this film. Like I knew.
Well,
Galadriel
they're not
was
supposed to be, but
of course. But that's
but I'll forgive it because
Saruman's badass, huh?
There were a few things. Wonky with that scene at Dol Guldur, but I'm willing to overlook it because having all those people together in one place fighting is really cool.
Right.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Well, and then I expected. So I had no expectation to see them again after the Grey Council, or what was it? In the
in
the first
Rivendell.
One? Is it the Grey Council? That's from Babylon 5. It's something else. But when they meet in the first one, and I thought, that's going to be our.
I guess you could technically call it the White Council, but that's really more of a wizard thing. But it's okay.
Well, Babylon 5 really is the science fiction version of Lord of the Rings. I highly recommend it. By the way,
okay,
you guys will like it.
Got it.
I thought that we would get more scenes of Saruman, because he's like, leave Sauron to me. I'm like, oh, cool, you're going to see Saruman go find the Plantier, right? Or something like that,
I think that was pretty much it. I think that was supposed to make you be like, oh, he was the last one. Like, if you were, God forbid that you would be watching these in this order, but if you were, I can understand on paper that looked good. Okay, he's the last person to go and, quote, take care of it. So then when we fast forward and all of a sudden he's a traitor in the Lord of the Rings, you're like, I
thought either don't have that in there at all or have an extra scene.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt kind of like incomplete. Like, maybe there's an extended edition with an extra scene somewhere. I don't know.
And possibly.
There might be.
Like, possibly.
Because I thought, I even felt like, even though this movie, as they all are, very long, I felt like I could see the edits. Like, I forget which scene it was, but it's like Bilbo and all the dwarves, and it looks like Bilbo's going to say something, but then it cuts to something completely different. I'm like, I bet there was a
speech there.
7 more minutes here.
Yep, totally.
You never see Elrond or Galadriel again? Like, I thought we would revisit them at least once in one of these endings I expected.
Well, you would have thought that they would come to the battle, right, of the Five Armies.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, obviously, he'd already kind of massaged that enough for film that I guess he didn't feel like he was going to bring them too. But to be fair, they have other shit to do. It doesn't matter to them if the dwarves take over that's right. That's I'd hate to say it, but that's small potatoes. Like they were involved with like the last great, like the War of the First Age, like that's serious shit. Like the world's gonna come to darkness, literally. So just the dwarves, like someone else being an Erebor, whatever. And that brings me to I love Lee Pace's Thranduil so hard. Like
he was really badass.
He was really cool
because I don't know how much is Lee Pace. It's probably all Lee Pace because he's a sassy man. But like he makes that character so good. He's definitely an elf. He's mysterious. He's got a lot of power. He's very kingly. But he's just that little touch of worldly that makes him kind of an asshole, and I love it. It's so good.
Also, how cool was his little reindeer elk thing?
It was a moose.
Okay, so I was really pissed off. That's what. Hey. Everyone who makes movies, you need to stop killing the people's mounts. I'm super tired of you not being able to come up with a better way to
animal
get
lover
off
here.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That elk was beautiful,
and it was
so cool.
It
was a tactical weapon too, because he beheaded all those guys.
That was so cool. That was like one of the best.
While we're talking about tactical animal weapons, I literally like swore with delight when I saw the armored ram.
Yeah, that was cool.
Almost had a conniption fit in the theater. I was really excited.
Here's a real criticism against Lord of the Rings. They have these animals just come out of nowhere to do things all the time. Like there's no establishment. Like if you look at a world like Star Wars,
it depends.
You establish here's some tauntauns and here's a wampa, But it's like in the battle, in anything, it's like we have cave trolls now. We have dune worms coming out of the mountain, and we have rams over here, and we have here come the eagles.
The bad creatures are pulled from the appendices. A lot of them served Morgoth. I thought they were going to have Balrogs because
that would be cool.
Like before the First Age, like Melkor and I'm not going to go into it too much, but he used to have a whole legion of like Balrogs at his command, which sounds appropriately terrifying. So that sounded cool, but I didn't think he was going to. The dune worms, I'm pretty sure those are in the appendices. It went a lot better with the original, most things did, with the Lord of the Rings trilogy in terms of introducing things. Like animals clearly had like a place that they came from and a purpose, and it wasn't
because you see Frodo and Sam find all the Oliphanes.
Plus the cave troll, the cave troll that was in Moria, that they fought in Moria in Durin's
Fellowship of the Ring.
Alan's tomb, whatever. I'm getting all their names confused. Stupid dwarves. But when they're in the tomb in Moria and they're fighting that cave troll, there was like one of those for a really long time until the siege of Pelennor Field, where the enemy had marshaled all the ones that it could find because there just aren't that many. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this movie, it was just kind of like, we had all these guys just sitting around. Really? You did? Like,
yeah, there was just no establishment. I mean, like, you saw them grow the armies in Fellowship of the Ring.
Right. That's what I'm. Right, exactly. You
amass all the dark forces and all that. Well, let me ask you this before we get too far away from the scene with Saruman and them.
Oh yeah.
What occurs there? Can you explain that to me? She banishes Sauron where? Where does he go? Back to Mordor?
Well, okay.
Or
I'm going to try to simplify the creation of this world for you.
Because,
she says that she banishes him to the void. Mm-hmm. The void is from whence all things came, right? So she's using the power of her ring, which is ironic because he made them.
Right.
But
yeah, so that's where she's getting her power, right?
Right. So she used. I mean, Galadriel has her own power in addition to Nenya is her ring.
It's just hard to keep this thing straight. I'm like, why can she do all that stuff?
That was actually a really confusing scene for people who are not fans. She was able to get rid of him, but at great personal cost.
Yeah. Well, what is that cost? What?
Well, so for the elves, especially towards the end of the Third Age, they talk a lot in Lord of the Rings, if you noticed, about diminishing.
Right.
Going into the West.
Well, Arwen's going to die because she's tied to the fate of the ring. That's some BS, but...
well, no, she could decide. It's kind of like her father is Elrond, right? Well, he has a brother named Elros, and both of them were half-elven. That's his name, is Elrond half-elven. So he could decide if he wanted to live life as an elf or as a man. Elros chose to live life as a man.
I didn't know that. Is that in the movies?
No.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
It is. Because he chose to live life as an elf, so when she falls in love with Aragorn, she chooses what sort of life she will have. Oh. She can live forever and go across the the Sundering Seas to the Undying Lands, and she'll, live there forevermore, etc., etc., which is what a lot of elves were doing, but she chose to have immortal life, which she says. Which is true. They took that from the appendices. Okay. PJ didn't just make that up.
See, why is this stuff? I find all these things that you're telling me very fascinating, but none of them are in the movies. So PJ fail.
I actually think that you would find the books way, way more interesting than the films. Because
they flesh everything out.
There's so much interesting lore that goes into like why things are the way they are.
Well, now that there's movie versions, I don't have to use my imagination to create the world. So sure, I'll read it.
A little part of me died, even though I know you said it just for my benefit.
Here's my deal. If you're going to make a trilogy out of a children's book like this, let's not leave any unanswered questions, please.
I agree.
There's no excuse
for
that.
Talked about
and what's up with why does Legolas have to leave? Right? What's up with that?
I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that because
because he can't have Tauriel.
Wait a minute.
Well,
hold on. I had a serious if I was driving a car and I was watching that scene, I would have had a freaking accident train wreck. He's sitting there and he's all like, that was the worst. Can I please petition to take that out of the film? We did not need that. Not only because, now there are lots of people fighting about this online right now, but I'm pretty confident. Okay, remember in the Lord of the Rings, we know how old Aragorn is because he said. Yes. So it's been about 60-ish, 70-ish years. I mean, they say there's 60 years between the events of The Hobbit and the events of Fellowship of the Ring. Okay, if that's true, I'm pretty sure Aragorn is
20.
If that.
He's no reputation
younger.
Now, right? He's not a ranger.
He's not someone that anyone would know about.
That was so unnecessary, though. Even as someone who doesn't know the books or the movies.
Oh, it upset me so much.
It's why that is Lucas 101 right there. That is Lucas 101. Go find Aragorn. Yeah. Okay.
You don't even know the age of the characters that they should be. Are you kidding me? And then there's another person who is well, even if he wasn't in his 20s, even if he wasn't, then he'd probably be 10 or 11.
The worst
mother brought him to Rivendell to grow up with Elrond's sons, and he's not going to do shit because he's a kid. And even if he's 20, that is when he's leaving Rivendell to go do shit with the Rangers. So he doesn't have a reputation one way or the other.
Well, as someone who actually enjoyed Legolas in these movies, they wrapped up the whole character just very oddly. I
agree. This film treated him very weird. Actually, Toriel too. I didn't mind her. I could take her or leave her, but I thought she was okay. And they just totally wow, way to steal her agency and make her all kinds of
Yeah, you're right. They just took it away. What did she become? She became a victim in this.
I know.
One, right?
That whole ending part was so bad, and I thought to myself, maybe this won't be that bad. He sees her crying over the dwarf,
and he'll forgive her or something. I don't know.
That's all we needed. There was no dialogue necessary for that.
Yeah, because your love was real. What kind of romance novel garbage
showing.
is that?
Stop telling.
Right.
Just show. And PJ did pretty good, I thought. A lot of times in Lord of the Rings where he would just show instead of telling. So instead of when Theoden comes out of his fugue he realizes that Theodred is dead, there's no it's just Miranda Otto singing a traditional song as they bury the son and he's crying. Thank God there wasn't some kind of fucking monologue to go along with that.
What they should have done,
you guys.
Fandral looks like a man of few words, you would think, right? So
he is not emotionally available.
He could just walk over to Evangeline Lilly and put his hand on her shoulder or something. That's all you need to do. And that would have been so much more effective than, you know why you're crying? Because love hurts, because it's real. It's what am I watching, Dr. Phil? What am I watching here?
I know. And it didn't need to be said because we already know, that's why he's that way, because his wife died. Thanks for treating the audience like they're 5. They remembered that happened in this movie.
Well, what they should have done, and I'm going to say, could you have done it better? Yes. Okay. Toriel should have died.
Yes, I thought so too. I thought she was going to.
Legolas breaks his heart, and then
I thought it was going to be like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing.
And he goes off on a walkabout, right? After she dies, and that's he meets up with Aragorn and all that, right?
It would have been such better motivation.
That's perfect. It's cliche, but it's perfect.
No, it would have. But
you invented this character, and now makes them you invented Toriel, mixed her up with an established character like Legolas, and then the whole resolution just messes up both their characters. It's just so weird to me.
You know what? The love thing, I hated it. I tried so hard to be open to that, which brings me to one of my biggest problems with this film, besides like the dialogue was painfully awful. A lot of times even the acting was odd, and from people who know how to act, so I don't know. But my biggest problem, why did they try so hard to copy Lord of the Rings? I mean, this film, that book is not Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they didn't follow the tone from the first film, where it was kind of serious. Yeah, the first Hobbit film, where it was kind of serious, kind of fun. Where was that?
That's my other thing, because I'm more on this like more big picture with my thinking on this movie, and it just seems like we've suffered from Lord of the Rings overload with the movie. Like it's just too much reminders of hey, we're part of the Lord of the Rings franchise. Yes. This happened to Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
We need to make this like Lord of the Rings. This is the last one, like the last Lord of the Rings film. Like that's kind of what everything was kind of like.
Yes.
It was to me. That's how it came across.
Well,
to
they
me.
want to give people what they're expecting. I think that's the problem. People they're marketing this as Lord of the Rings, so they expect to see a Lord of the Rings-esque, movie. And
kind of like how like today, like when we got our
tickets, stuff.
Lance, tell them the story. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we were getting our tickets at the movie theater today, and just like Zach goes up first. He's like, one for the Hobbit, please. Thank you. Pays for it. I go up there. One for the Hobbit, please. Thank you. Pay for it. Dude behind me, as I'm like, signing, my signatures after I pay, and he's just like, yeah, one for Lord of the Rings, please. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's Lord of the Rings, asshole. Like it's the Hobbit, asshole. Like know what you're saying. This is not the Lord of the Rings. It's the Hobbit.
You're gonna be disappointed, my friend.
For real, yeah. For real though, why did he try so hard to like ride the coattails of Pelennor Fields? You can't recreate that, and nor should you. Why are you trying to recreate Aragorn and Arwen, which was actually unique and interesting in the actual world?
It cheapens the uniqueness of Aragorn and Arwen when you have, look, here's another dwarf woman and another non-dwarf guy, and they have a star-crossed love. Right. And are they really in love? Were they like in 2 scenes together?
See, that's what really irritates me, because from the minute you see Aragorn and Arwen, they've known each other for a while.
Yes.
He fell in love with her when he met her when he was a boy growing up in Rivendell, so he's always loved her. So it was kind of like why would you do that? Why would you step on the toes of your magnum opus? I think that's what I don't understand, because I think that's where I start getting like offended, because it's okay to make something different, but why are you? And these movies, quote, come first. I can't imagine. It would pain me if someone watched these first and then saw Lord of the Rings. I just can't. I don't even want to think about that. The other thing that steps on my toes, if I'm pretending I'm the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Okay, so the deal with like Legolas and Gimli being friends was a big fucking deal.
Yes, it was.
Because that was the first time in recent memory for like centuries that there had been like amiable, thawed relations between an elf and a dwarf. And then here you are with Tauriel and whichever one he was. Like that drove Killy. That's
you don't know, Nancy? I'm disappointed in you.
I'm telling you.
She doesn't care.
Don't care. Like, that's kind of the problem. I know the other ones. I just can't remember which one they are. That really irritated me.
I have a question about the dwarves, too, when you're done, but go ahead.
Oh, well, that's too bad, right? Because we didn't see any of the dwarves this film. And on that note, we didn't really see Bilbo at all. Which is another reason the film suffered.
You know
because
what?
Martin Freeman is amazing, and he was barely in it.
That was a great segue we were going to use here, because I was just about to say that. You know what we haven't been talking about this whole time? Because we've been talking for quite a while? The Hobbit. The Hobbit.
I know, dude.
The star of the trilogy. What's up with that, right? I mean, what is his role in the Battle of the Five Armies in the book?
To be fair, he does just spectate.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, okay, and he did kind of do that in the film. Mm-hmm. And I understand that they wanted to show it. That's also fine. I didn't really have a problem with anything that Bilbo did in this film.
Well, he didn't do very much. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the first film, obviously, he was the audience in point, or the in, The first film was, his story. I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah.
He had a scene with Gollum. As he experienced Middle Earth, we saw it through his eyes. So that was
right.
A good journey. And then the second one, the talking spiders was kind of bullshit in my opinion. I didn't really care for that. But he had stuff to do. He had his whole back and forth with Smaug.
That was great.
All
that
the
was
best scenes.
That was the best. That was the best part of the second one.
Yeah,
all the best scenes
awesome.
in this trilogy are Bilbo talking to CGI characters.
Yeah.
But then you get to this one, and he has some interesting, for a little bit, like the first third of the movie. Some interesting dilemma with the Arkenstone and Thorin and all that stuff, and it's interesting to see Thorin get evil through Bilbo's eyes.
Which
starts to
I
sound
thought was
like
actually
Smaug.
really cool. Oh, that was one of my favorite parts.
Very well done.
That was really cool when they were layering Smaug's voice over his voice. I was like, that
was really cool.
Awesome.
Not one coin. But he just didn't have anything to do for like the second half of the movie.
Right? They tried to include him, but there just wasn't very much.
But I mean, I like Bilbo. I mean, okay, so we've been talking for so long about this all over the place. What did you like, Nancy, out of the third?
Well, I
film,
have
Hobbit
a list.
3? Yeah, go ahead. Read your list.
Go for
here.
it.
Okay, so what I liked, we talked about it already. I liked the Dol Guldur fight scene. I would have changed some things, but in general, that was pretty cool.
Agreed.
I loved. We didn't get to see very much of it, but I liked the battle rams that the dwarves had with their armor on. That's just so rad. I loved that. Thranduil, I've already mentioned.
Right.
Martin Freeman, because
of course.
Martin Freeman, duh. Costuming and props. I mean, if nothing else, I always love seeing what Middle Earth looks like because it is like down to the detail. Every little detail is taken care of. That's personally something that I really like. Plus, when you look at the concept art for it and you realize like how much work went into trying to make each dwarf unique, down from their silhouette to their clothes to their weapons, which made me really sad that we didn't really get to see them, the other dwarves of the company.
Well, let me ask
fighting.
you this. I still don't know who was who. I don't know names for shit. Nor do I know who is related to who. Like,
so
those guys, Thorin's brothers, Thorin's sons. I'm just confused.
Well, so the rest of them are sort of distantly.
Well, the one dwarf I do know. Okay, there's Gilly. Is it Gilly the one?
So Philly and Killy are Thorin's nephews.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
And then there's Exposition Dwarf, as I called him, the old dwarf who
yes.
would tell Bilbo everything and whenever there was a question to be. Yeah, Balin. Okay, yeah. Exposition Dwarf.
Balin's cool.
Balin is Ballin, fool.
He
Ballin.
is. Ballin.
Anyway, and then there's and you know what? I really liked how, and I don't know his name, but the big dwarf who is always fighting with the axe. Is that Gimli's dad?
Oh no, that's not Gloin.
Well, it should have been because he's the one I actually remember. Because he's the one that pretty much confronts Thorin near the end. Like, hey, they're dying out there. Did you not hear me? People are dying outside. Why are we in here?
Why am I blanking on that dude? Hang on just a minute. I'm blanking on him. I think it's. Damn it.
Well, there you go. There's your problem right there, PJ. But the dwarves are so interchangeable. They're so interchangeable.
But you know what? And it's sad because they were designed to not be. They have very distinct personalities. They have very. I mean.
Well, a lot of them look kind of ridiculous, to be honest. Like the fat ones.
Yay, Bomber! I love Bomber. And the only other thing I had on for what I actually really liked was Thorin's voice being tinged with Smaug's.
Right, yeah. That
was really awesome.
Very nice touch.
But, I mean, the story was just so... I mean, what story? It was so pushed together. It was like a bunch of disparate parts that he just sort of strung together with tape. It
was.
The whole is less than the sum of its parts with these movies.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's like, you had a lot of individual pieces that looked incredible by themselves, like in a vacuum. But yeah, exactly. The sum of the parts was just not. I just wasn't. Also, Alfred. Oh my God.
That guy was annoying.
He didn't even get any comeuppance.
You guys, like.
He just kept stealing screen time from things.
And I understand that they were trying to make him like a Grima, but Grima Wormtongue was actually like
Wormtongue, big time.
But Wormtongue was actually like creepy, and he had depth, and he wasn't two-dimensional.
He had a function. This guy didn't. He was just annoying.
This guy was the stereotypical guy, like you'd see in a Lord of the Rings knockoff movie. Although I did like Luke Evans, I saw Dracula Untold, which is actually better than it should have been, and he did a good job in it. Yeah. If it's on Netflix, I'd definitely recommend watching it. I'd be interested to see what you think.
Okay.
But he looks exactly the same in that as he does in this. So I mean, it's weird. It's a period piece, right? He's got armor, swords. He's got the long hair. Exactly the same facial hair too. And it's like, man, is this Bard or Dracula? So it was kind of cool to watch him do stuff. It was very underdeveloped, you know. If he's supposed to be the Aragorn of this trilogy, I guess.
No, he wasn't.
Well, it seemed that way, right?
In the book. He just doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot of embellishment on him in the book.
Yeah,
so they really had to reach.
Well, to Zach's point, that's kind of what they wanted to make him. Like you could tell, from the look and the way he was functioning, and like the way they wanted to have him used in this movie.
Yeah, and again, I say, why are we going back and retreading things that Lord of the Rings has already done?
Well, this is
the fight between Thorin and Azog was so dumb.
When he opened his eyes, I called it.
Yeah, because we were both kind of just waiting for it because like I was not convinced at all that dude was dead, and I was just kind of waiting and just kind of biding my time, and it seemed like the movie was kind of like asking you to bide your time until he woke up again.
It did. It did. So stupid. Like, let's not even talk about the logistics. Not only that, I nearly came out of my seat foaming at the mouth by how much it was like ripping off Éowyn and the Witch King. Yeah. I just wanted to strangle somebody.
Although I was amused when he threw the rock at him and he caught it, and that's why he sank.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know, the few times that they tried for some weird sort of levity, it just made me feel secondhand embarrassment.
Right.
It just didn't work.
I really do, and you know, my whole shtick with you guys has always been, I make fun of Lord of the Rings, whatever. But yeah. I have a whole new respect for it now, and I do want to watch it again after seeing these.
I gotta be honest, with the Peter Jackson who made the Lord of the Rings at that time, if he'd decided he wanted to make The Hobbit immediately afterwards, and I think it would have been better if he'd made it immediately afterwards. I think it would have been totally different.
Well, he wanted to make The Hobbit
way
first.
Better. I know, but they
didn't have the rights.
I'm really okay with that because I don't like The Hobbit very much. So
you wouldn't have prequelitis like you do now.
But I think there's that, and I think that he would have been in a different frame of mind. I think the years that he spent in between were not good.
What? Kate, I like King Kong.
No,
you don't like the King Kong remake?
Nope,
really?
Too long.
It is too long. Although I did cry watching it. So
Aww.
I know, right? Now, see,
but you love King Kong.
I'm human after all. No,
I love King Kong.
I was watching it by myself on Lance was not there. I was in the dorms, and I just got it on DVD for Christmas. I was watching it by myself. It was the extended edition. I cried when King Kong died. So well done.
You did? Really?
I have emotions too. You know, so
they just don't run on the surface.
That's right.
Okay.
And I'm just telling you guys, so don't tell anybody else. Okay.
All right.
Don't tell anybody. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with tears. I'm tired of that shit too.
No,
there's
there
nothing
isn't.
wrong with crying.
There's only like 5 people that listen to this podcast anyway.
I was just surprised.
So. But yeah, I think King Kong was way too long. Like the original King Kong was long for the 30s. Like it was an hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
And so he basically just extrapolated that and made a 3.5 hour movie. The extended edition is just absurd. Of course, I relate to him because we share the same favorite movie. It's great that he got to remake it because the 70s remake was not a good remake. The one with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange of American Horror Story fame. You're right. As a movie itself, I can see why if you didn't have an emotional investment in it already. Man, it's actually a lot like The Hobbit now that we're talking about it.
I was just about to say.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know if it's just success or something, but when there's no one around to tell you no. I mean, it's George Lucas, right? No, they gave him. He turned 2 movies into 3, and they let him do it with this.
Yeah.
You know, so there was no one to rein him in. If Peter Jackson today made Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, he would have put Tom Bombadil in it.
He totally would have.
You know.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally, but I understand what you're saying, though. I understand.
Yeah, no restraint.
They would right. Well, and I think the fact that he struggled so much with having to cut stuff to make it, even as long as it was suitable to be shown in theaters, was really good because it forced him to see like, okay, what has to stay and what doesn't. I just don't feel that level of editing happened in these films.
No, it's like, oh, you need another movie? Sure, no problem, Peter. We'll release another movie.
The stuff that I really wanted him to focus on, he didn't. Like, I love Bjorn. He's one of my favorite characters because what is not cool about a man shapeshifting into a bear? Literally nothing. That's the best thing ever. So,
well, yeah, I was when we saw him again, I was like, oh, that guy.
Okay, so I guess magical bears are immune to gravity because that eagle dropped him from like heights, and he was just like fine. P.S. The eagles. More to your point.
The eagles, yes.
They just show up.
Go ahead.
So there shouldn't have been eagles.
The Deus Ex Machina of Lord of the Rings.
Right, but the problem is they're not really It's just in the Lord of the Rings, you saw them a lot because like shit was real a lot. Like you actually the thing with the Eagles is they don't get involved. They're kind of like not quite the elves, but kind of like the wizards. They don't intervene directly. They just don't. They have a different code of honor, etc., etc. Just like the wizards are not supposed to intervene directly.
Have you been watching Constantine?
I'm a couple episodes behind, but I've seen most of it. Yeah.
So they're like the angels on Constantine, right?
Yes. So kind of like that, right? Yeah. But I just I understand why they had the Eagles in this movie if we're just looking at it from purely like because they saved them in the first film.
Well, to be honest, it was a facepalm moment. I'm like, oh, here are the Eagles. It's the end of the trilogy. Here come the Eagles to save the day, just like last time.
I agree.
Although
see, that's kind of my problem.
What made it better, I will say this, though. Thorin is dying, and he dies, and Bilbo's like, but the Eagles are here. It's going to be okay. And they don't save it. I'm like, you know what? That almost makes it okay for me. Because it was like, even though the Eagles are here.
The only time that I felt emotion was watching because Martin Freeman is such a good actor.
In the whole film?
Yeah.
Well, let me think about it.
I mean, honestly, yes. Because Martin Freeman sitting there and like, oh, I just love him so much. I just have such an appreciation for him, for his craft. He's just so good at what he does. But watching Bilbo try not to like cry but end up crying anyway made me want to cry. Because I think they did a really good job, and I don't remember it being that way in the book. They did a good job of making Thorin and Bilbo like homies.
Well, I mean, like when you saw his humanity, his dwarf-manity, or whatever you want to call it, break through, and he was talking to, even though he was like in the what do you call it, the gold spell, the dragon spell,
dragon sickness,
dragon fever, whatever. You see him smile and talk to Bilbo like his old self,
right.
So that was nice to see. Okay,
I thought it was interesting that he took Bilbo aside when he thought the others because there's no way Bilbo could do it.
That was some great. That was a great acting on
that was
Martin
good.
Freeman there.
Like,
Richard Armitage went like totally Shakespearean in this film. Like he went way over the top.
Yeah,
with all of that.
What else has he done? He hasn't been in a lot of stuff, has he?
I think he's been in some Shakespearean stuff.
Interesting.
All those people go to the stage. Though. I swear. No, he is a good actor. I actually thought Thorin was really good. I liked Thorin.
He was more.
The whole time.
I know he's not a human or a man or whatever, but I guess he was more the Aragorn of this trilogy.
Yes,
right.
I think so.
Yeah, even though they tried to make Bard that, it was really Thorin.
It was really Thorin. Well, because he was really more of because he actually had a flaw. he had a flaw that he had to overcome, just like Aragorn had to overcome his reticence to being the king and not wanting that responsibility. Well, too bad.
Yeah.
He had to come to terms with that.
Well, what do we all think of Gandalf in this film?
Okay, so I'm tired. Gandalf seems
it was just
like
typical Gandalf, like just
ineffective.
Ran the same play, no effect.
Definitely bumbling old wizard.
Oh, wait!
No, I loved him in the first movie. The Hobbit one was really good with him. Like, okay, I'm taking my leave today. Like he just got fed up.
Right.
Everyone being the way that they were, so he just had to take a power.
Well, I feel that's in both trilogies, Gandalf has a just increasingly diminished role in each film, which makes sense in Lord of the Rings because he dies. That's a good reason to have a diminished role.
True. Well, he dies, but then he comes back better,
white,
cooler, and indeed.
But you know what? Talking about the human moments, right? Human moments, whatever, dwarves and wizards.
I know what you meant.
I expected to get more of the feels in the last scene between Bilbo and Gandalf, but it's like, hey, I'm out of here.
Too.
All right, see ya. Hey,
it's very true.
I'm keeping my eye on you.
Also, I think just Lord of the Rings will always be it for me. I can't help being less enthused about The Hobbit because I just didn't care. But there's a whole new generation of Tolkien fangirls and fan people in general that are obsessing over the Hobbit films and wishing and drawing and writing because of it, and I'm really okay with that. Mm-hmm. That's what Lord of the Rings was for me. I told you I met Tara through it. It's been a constant thread in my life. I know what it's like to love Tolkien really hard and wish that it was real, and it's not. So if that's what the Hobbit films are to this new generation of people who love them, then I'm glad they were made, even if I don't like them. I think that's kind of if these films make people want to read the books, then it's a success. I think.
Well, that's an excellent way to look at it, Nancy. Obviously you were not the biggest fan of this film.
No, but you know what? I can see why people like it.
Right.
It's just.
But that's
we
a great
had
attitude.
Lord of the Rings, though.
I feel like what you just said right there is should be a mission statement for all nerds because
for real.
I feel the same way about the new Star Trek films. Especially the second one. And oh my God, breaking news. This is not a topic, but we have to discuss it for like 2 minutes.
What?
Bear with me.
What?
The new director for Star Trek 3.
Who?
Justin Lin.
Ooh.
From Fast and the Furious fame.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So.
Uh-oh.
Hey, you don't know.
I am not happy.
Okay, but to be fair, you don't know what will happen.
I would rather McG direct Star Trek 3. Okay, and because Terminator Salvation is pretty good. You know, I mean, Jeremy Lin.
Jeremy Lin. That might be better.
I'd rather Jeremy Lin direct Star Trek. Now, to be fair, I have not seen Fast and the Furious 5 or 6.
Oh,
but can you blame me? It's Fast and the Furious 5 and 6. Okay,
I saw them.
So, what did you think of those?
I thought they were fun to watch.
Would they make good Star Trek films, Nancy?
I would say I would agree with you and say no. But then again, Peter Jackson made Lord of the Rings, and then he made these, and they're not anything the same. So, I mean,
Lance, have you seen the new Fast and the Furious?
Not the newest one. I've seen the first 3.
I don't think he did any of those.
You know what? I like those movies because they are totally stupid.
Well, at least they know what they are.
Dumb.
They know what they are.
Yeah, see, I think that's what it is. It's not trying to be more than what it is. It knows.
But Star Trek needs to... I'm getting all meta here, right? But the whole...
That's fair.
Star Trek is about being more than what you are, right? That's what Star Trek is about, the human adventure. Right. I wish the movies would aspire to the same thing. Now, the original series movies were all like that. They weren't gangbusters at the box office, but they were all very successful and they were true to Star Trek, and that's what makes them great. And I don't know.
Fair enough.
Any enthusiasm I had for Star Trek 3 is now gone.
It's kind of gone.
It's gone now. It is driven away at 90 miles an hour with Paul Walker behind the wheel, okay? But no, I think that's a great statement you made about everything. Like, it's keeping it in the public consciousness, and it's keeping it alive. It's still quality. Now let's
you know what?
Here.
It's not bad.
We have been hating on this movie pretty hardcore.
I don't think we've been hating on it so much as it's just like we thought that. I think we did. You said you had no expectations, but I think you had some because we all are disappointed in various ways. I know.
You mentioned the endings or the lack thereof. I was shocked. I was looking at the time, much like you, and I was thinking, okay, well, here's the endings that got to start soon.
Right? And they didn't.
We got to have like 3 or 4, and then I am glad they went back to Ian Holm to almost bookend it.
Yep.
Because he started it out the Hobbit trilogy.
And I liked the very last part where they showed like the map, and then everything was laid out exactly like it was when we saw the same scene, but from outside in the Fellowship of the Ring. Like that was good.
Yeah, was that the same scene, or did you see it from Gandalf's perspective? I guess
it was the same scene, but from Gandalf's perspective.
Nice. See, I mean, those are the little nuances I didn't catch.
Also,
I'm not
I remembered something else I liked.
Oh, yeah.
When he comes back to the Shire, and they're all like, it's an estate sale for all of his shit, and he steals those spoons back from Lobelia's Sackville Baggins. So good. So good. Like, I hate all those hobbits so much.
Well, so does he.
I know. I just thought it was funny. And he's like, you know who I am, Lobelia. Like,
it's a very Hobbit thing to do. Since they're like, well, he's been gone for 30 months, they said.
30 months.
So, of course he's dead. Where would he go? Like, they don't think that way,
No, right, exactly. It's just
hilarious. Although I was a little, not to, I mean, Middle Earth, right? It's a fantasy world, right?
Okay, right.
So, it's odd to see, like, June 22nd or whatever on the... You see that, like, the estate sale? I was like, they have months and days just like we do? That's a little weird. Like, that is the ultimate nitpicking right now is what I'm doing.
No, but I noticed that too, and I didn't like it.
It's like it's Star Wars. We're like, hey, Luke, what are you doing on July 4th? It's, that's
I don't know.
equivalent. It's like, what are you talking about? It's Middle Earth, man.
Shooting off space fireworks.
Which they have on Endor.
Clearly. I am very curious to see what's in the extended edition because I just don't. I mean, like you said, there was a speech that was probably cut out. There were some other things. I'll be curious to see. Okay, so we have to talk about how the CGI in this film looked way worse than the CGI from like 10 years ago, which is awful.
Like the cave troll was like the one thing everyone pointed to in Fellowship of the Ring, and those are all over the place here, or equivalents.
Yeah.
I think Weta. What's wrong with Weta? They like dropping the ball or what?
I don't know. Oh, also, now's a good time to talk about it. So let's talk about CGI. That Legolas stunt, and the one
that was hilarious.
Yeah,
hilarious. Like that was the most Legolas thing I've ever seen.
That was the most. That was the most Link thing I've ever seen. I mean, that was straight out Smash Brothers, man.
I mean, I feel like there was a precedent for it for some of his stuff that he did in the Lord of the Rings, because
the skateboard was
when they're
enough,
trying to go through the Caradhras and of course in the Mountain Pass initially before because remember Gandalf doesn't want to go into the Mines of Moria because he knows what's in there, so he doesn't want to. So they're trying to go through the Mountain Pass, but they can't because Saruman's stopping them. When the snow falls on everybody, Legolas is just like whatevs, walking on top of it because elves are so light.
Yeah.
Okay, right, but that doesn't mean that they're exempt from the way that physics and gravity works.
I didn't even know that. Like,
yes. I can see where they were trying. I think that's even more egregious, to be honest, because they knew what they were trying to do with it, and they just stretched it too far. That's just dumb.
Right. By the way, I was waiting forever for the title screen to come up.
Me too. Me too.
Because it's like you see the flashback, and then you see the title, right? But no, it was like a good 15 minutes for them to kill Smaug and get on with it. But anyway, that's just a complete aside. But I'm glad you felt the same way. I was like,
I thought too. I was like, oh, are we just not going to have one?
Did they forget?
Is it going to be at the end of the movie? Like, when is this happening? Like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and as much as I'm like, there were times that I enjoyed the film quite a few times, but it wasn't for me like my expectation and enjoyment for Lord of the Rings. It just wasn't.
Well, at the end of the day, Nancy, you are the Lord of the Rings fan of the three of us. Where do you see this in the Lord of the Rings legacy? Like, does this help? Does it hurt? Does it not do either? Is it a wash, basically?
I think it's people really... Okay, but the overwhelming opinion that I've seen online, from what I can tell, it seems like a lot of people really liked this film, which is great. I mean, that's only good. If you thought it was good, like, A+, you do you. That's great. I'm glad you liked it. I hope that it inspires you to read other things and look more deeply into the fantasy genre, like whatever. But I just...
There is a difference.
I don't think it hurts. I mean, really? Because the movies weren't bad. They were just really
right.
mediocre.
I mean, we're not talking Attack of the Clones or...
Oh, no. No, definitely not. I think that's just because the source material is so good that they couldn't really quite make it awful.
Well, to use the Star Trek analogy again, The Hobbit was set and you're done. You know, so even though people like this film that you might not have been a fan of,
sure,
it doesn't matter. It will not affect any other films moving forward. Right?
Right.
In a franchise like Star Trek, when a lot of people like a bad film, you're going to get more bad films. Because the studios are like, oh, they like this crap? Well, great. Let's make that again. And it's going to get worse and worse.
Very true.
So it's more dangerous in an ongoing franchise than a closed franchise, so to speak.
Right. No, I agree. That's true.
But speaking of closed franchise, do you see them doing anything else?
No, I really don't.
You don't
Not
think,
only because the estate won't let them, but no, I don't. There's no way. There's no way that he could do... There's no way he could put... I mean,
he isn't even... J.J. Abrams is going to do it in about 20 years. That's what's going to... He's going to do the sequel trilogy.
I would hope not, because it's just too much.
I am literally going to learn to apparate, and then I will apparate to JJ's house, and I will make sure he doesn't do it.
There are literally 24 hours of film now, so...
Yep.
Yay!
I don't think we can ever have a Hobbit Lord of the Rings marathon. We'll literally have to stay up for a whole day, so...
I'm cool with that, but I don't really want to watch the Hobbits except for the first one.
And as I laugh about it, I think it'd actually be kind of cool to do. But
it would be fun. Well, I don't think it really hurts or helps. I mean, I think it's only a positive. Really. I mean, if people didn't like it, okay, they didn't like it. But if people did like it, you know, that's different. They're generating a different kind of buzz, which they may carry over to similar stuff.
Right. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about here.
I mean, no.
We are just nitpicking. We are being nerds.
I can't help the way that I am. But if you liked this movie, I'm really glad that you liked it. It actually makes me really happy that you did, because you found something that was magical about Tolkien's universe, and I'll always share that with every fan, because there's always something that you'll like. And
sure.
I mean, even if it was something that Peter Jackson kind of rigmarolled put together, I'm okay with that too. I don't care. If it made you happy and it made you want to go create something or be a better person, then good. I'm glad it exists. That's awesome. And I'm so glad they killed the right people. So glad.
If nothing else.
If nothing, you guys, like, I was really concerned because I know the fandom has been like all over Richard Armitage and Thorin. I was really worried they weren't going to kill him.
Well, I will amend your statement there and say they should have killed Toriel.
Oh, I know. I agree.
So,
but I mean, the official death count was
right,
good.
right. At least
Yeah,
we're,
I thought Torio was dead.
I mean,
for a while there.
She's not canon, okay? She's expanded universe.
You could kill her. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's expanded universe. Oh, that's sad. That's a low blow. Oh.
Lance, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts, Lance.
Final thoughts. It was a lot. A lot of unnecessary
That's for damn
stuff.
sure. It was a
lot.
lot.
No, it's a lot. It was just a lot. It was some parts were kind of unnecessary, but overall, I was underwhelmed by it.
Right.
I didn't hate it, but it was just kind of there. I had no real emotional attachment to it, and the whole thing, it seemed out of balance. It wasn't structured the way I think it probably should have been, and the way the other ones were. I mean, there were things that I liked about it, obviously, but overall, just kind of didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you, man. I'll use a Young Justice term and say I was whelmed.
Okay.
As we said before, the whole is less than the sum of its parts. There's some great stuff in these movies. Martin Freeman is great. Love Bilbo. He's a lot better than Frodo. I think we all agree on that.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, no offense to Elijah Wood, but Frodo is just,
Well,
kind of
you know what? That's just kind of who Frodo is. Elijah couldn't really help that.
Exactly. And, Smaug was awesome. Gollum was
Yes.
great to see him again. I mean, it was great to see...
That whole part with Bilbo and Gollum was so good.
Riddles in the Dark, I mean, that's the best scene of the whole trilogy,
Agreed.
Or series of scenes. I think that it was cool to see Legolas. I liked him a lot better in this trilogy than in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
The Thorn was a pretty cool for a dwarf, Not quite exactly the perfect trilogy by any means, but a solid trilogy. Obviously, there's a lot of care and attention put into them. Nothing was half-assed. Even decisions that we disagree with, they were thought out.
Yes.
So when we're nerds, when we're complaining about stuff like this, we need to.
Because we care.
We're just very opinionated people. That's why we have a podcast. So.
I just preferred the other trilogy for a variety of reasons.
I would be shocked if anyone didn't. I mean.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm telling you, there's a new bumper crop of Tolkien fans who. These movies, I mean, I can tell from the way that they talk to each other and hate each other and write things that this is their Lord of the Rings. So I'm okay with that. Yeah. Hopefully they'll go watch Lord of the Rings and like that better. But, even if they don't, everyone's entitled to like what they like. And these were good films.
It's kind of like with Interstellar.
In that sense.
Did you see Interstellar, Nancy?
Of course.
No, would you like it?
Yeah, I did like it.
Okay. I wasn't the biggest fan.
I mean, overall, yeah, I liked it. Were there some things I thought were kind of like, I got a problem with it? Sure. But overall, yeah, I liked it.
But I'd much rather have...
feels.
Yeah. I'd much rather have movies like that and this, I'm going to talk about and complain about, but they're still quality films than, stuff like, Fast and the Furious now.
I'm trying to come up with the Star Wars pun since you mentioned. It's a Star Trek pun since you mentioned it, but I haven't been able to come up with anything.
Well, cool guys. I think we've enjoyed our mixed journey back to Middle Earth. It was enjoyable. It was. That's all we can ask for. It was enjoyable. It was quality, and it wasn't embarrassing. So for a prequel, that is a win, right? Am I right?
I agree.
Thank you. Hear me, Star Wars fans. So
yeah.
So Nancy, I'm glad you could join us back on the show again.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Obviously, we weren't going to do this show without you. So.
Yes.
Well, good. I'm glad that it all worked out.
Because we have no one to ask our Lord of the Rings questions to. So.
Well, and I was a little rusty, so the next time that we discuss Lord of the Rings, I will be on it.
All right. Well, that wraps up another installment of Nerds Explain It All. I'm Zach.
I'm Lance.
And I'm Nancy.
And we don't break news, but we do break it down.
By the same token, there have
by
been
the same token.
Oh, that's terrible.